you know, 1000, it's much more than just a documentary project. You know, this is kind of heartfelt and enlightening work. You know, since the week we've opened, you know, I see visitors here in the lobby just kind of transfixed by this work. You know, people will suddenly like connect to a different image or to the words that go with it. I mean, I've even had people in the lobby crying or having tears coming out of their eyes because it affects so many caregivers who are dealing with all sorts of things, epilepsy, you know, memory loss, chronic illness, you know, and it really strikes people. And it's really been impactful. And Debbie and her sister Lori, they're both extraordinary women. Debbie's an award-winning photographer based in Santa Monica. She exhibits nationally at the renowned Center for Photographic Arts in Carmel, as well as galleries in New York and Boston, and internationally in China, Barcelona, India, and you're probably going to play more places with this show. So we wish you the best. She's won so many awards, there are just too many to list, but 1000 was recognized this year with both the Center Social Award and the Critical Mass Top 50 Award. And Lori, David's mom, for the past 28 years, her life has been really dedicated to his care. You know, the physical, emotional, psychological demands, they're unrelenting. But David really, I think, has given Lori a gift, you know, kind of a greater purpose. You know, this has made Lori share her experiences to help other caregivers and to enhance the awareness of our own health providers here on campus and across the country. Her courage and the exploration of the spiritual aspects of this journey with David is really inspirational. You know, before I turn the program over, you know, I want to let you know about a special upcoming event that we're having on campus. Thursday, November 17th, we're bringing psychiatrist, pianist, Dr. Richard Kogan to campus. And he's going to perform a ragtime, The Mind and Music of Scott Joplin. Now, Kogan is totally amazing. He's a graduate both of Juilliard and of Harvard Medical School. You know, real underachiever, this guy. But he gives these performances where he gives us insights about the psychology and the mental state of an artist, of a performer. And then he plays amazingly well. And it's free and open to the public. It's going to be in an adjacent building here, Education 2 North. And there's flyers so you can RSVP in our lobby. Just grab one and check it out, because I think it's going to be one of the events of the year. It's really going to be terrific. Kogan is amazing. And this is a world premiere of this Scott Joplin presentation. He's done George Gershwin, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, but this is the first time about Scott Joplin. So 1000 was really generously supported by the Epilepsy Foundation of Colorado and Wyoming. They've helped Debbie get the show on the road. And the foundation also helped plan and provided refreshments for tonight's event. So thank you to the Epilepsy Foundation. Thank you for all that you guys do. And I'd like to introduce their CEO, Sarah Klein.
Thank you, David. I'm tall. Oh, there we go. I was like, I'm a little taller than David. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say just a quick welcome and thank you all so much for being with us tonight. I'm Sarah Klein. I'm the CEO of the Epilepsy Foundation of Colorado, Wyoming. We serve the nearly 65,000 people in our region who are living with epilepsy, as well as their families, their friends, their caregivers, their healthcare providers, and everyone who is impacted by seizures. We do this in a variety of ways. We connect people to healthcare providers, to support groups, to resources and information. We educate through conferences and webinars. We provide seizure first aid training. We empower people with information and resources and legislative advocacy to make a difference in people's lives. And today, if you don't know, is the first day of Epilepsy Awareness Month. So this is a really timely get together today. So, we celebrate epilepsy awareness. We raise awareness. We try to end stigma. We bring people together, and we celebrate, honor the people in our lives who we love, who are living with epilepsy. So it's in that spirit that I'm delighted to turn the program over to Debbie and Lori, and just so thank them for being here and for bringing this art presentation to us today. So Debbie and Lori, it's all yours. We're so glad that you're here.
But in this rotund, I want to say hello to you all because my back is going to be towards you. Thank you all for being here. So we also want to thank David so very much for the opportunity. I want to thank Corinne, who is here, Sarah, who just spoke. It's really helpful to have support, no matter what we're doing in life. And this is just one aspect of it. And thank you all for being here to support us as well. We all have a story. Everybody's got a story. Oh, did I lose my mic? No, okay. Let me know if suddenly something goes off. The other person I need to thank is Lori and the entire Sandler family, because without her saying yes, David saying yes, we would not be here.
And thank you, Deb. and I want to reiterate all the thank yous that Debbie just spoke, and thank you to everybody for coming. And we're going to get some slides up here.
So also I want to say, though, it's Lennox-Gastaut Syndrome Awareness, or International Awareness Day, which is why we chose this day in conjunction with Epilepsy nationally. Both very important things for us to bring awareness to. When we began the project, we're going to get into the whole wonderful story about it. There we go. Oh, is that our first image? That was our first image. Okay. So the reason we're here is I was photographing Lori and David in their home. It was the first summer of COVID, and you know how that shook up so many of our lives. I was missing my Colorado family. I live in Los Angeles, and I drove out. My parents, I figured I was healthy enough that I wasn't going to get them sick. And then I got to visit with Lori and David. I figured I'd be around for a week, maybe 10 days. And as I was taking this one particular photograph, I get this sort of message, this intuition, call it whatever you would. I got this sort of unvoiced voice that said, you have to make a project of Lori and David. And immediately when that happened, I felt this, I call it a heart opening. And literally I felt as if my heart had opened. And in that moment, it was like, you know, everything just comes into one moment, and you just as if you know everything. And I knew in that moment, everything I had done in my career as a photographer was leading up to that moment that I could tell Lori and David's story. So I asked Lori if we can make this project. And you did what?
And I froze in fear at the thought of, I know the types of images my sister takes, and the thought of being vulnerable and having our images out there for the public. My initial response was hell no, but I didn't say that. And I know that when I feel deep fear and there isn't a lion or tiger in front of me, there's something to lean into there. And I thought about it and realized this can be an avenue for greater meaning for my life and David's life. And who knows how this will touch other people. And so I said yes.
Quiet for a while. She said she froze, she was in fear, and inside I'm like, please say yes, please say yes. And she did, of course, as we know. But then immediately I knew I had to ask David. David is nonverbal. And I did not know if he would respond, understand any of those things. I had not a clue, but I knew I had to ask him. I believe, you know, in this picture here, I'll describe in a moment, but I do believe that David knows what's going on far more than we know. I do believe that. And so I said to him, I would, could we do this? I would photograph him with respect and honor and love. And if he ever felt uncomfortable, if I sensed it, obviously, if I sensed it, I would stop. And he did something he'd never done before, which was he just leaned in to me, held my gaze for an extended period of time. Lori and I looked at each other and we're like, oh, God, our yes. And
David doesn't have a formal communication system, and he doesn't have a reliable way that he says yes or no, but this was just so obvious.
it was amazing. Yeah. And so this image is my interpretation of, well, this is the everyday, you know, on the left, this is two images. It's called a diptych. On the left is David. Lori has just completed bathing him, and she has deodorant in her hand. She's blued out. And then on the other one is he refused to have his teeth brushed. So she's now guiding him downstairs. You know, you can take my hand. She has a toothbrush in her hand. And so that is his silhouette. The reason I paired the images this way is the sense of this connection that the two have. And I believe that David and who he is has shaped Lori's life. That's my interpretation of that.
So this image called The Weight of Responsibility is me standing in the kitchen looking at David on the couch. And it's probably after I've prepared evening medications. So I just want to share a little bit of the background of this weight of responsibility. So David was diagnosed when he was about 8 months old with a seizure disorder, not Lennox-Gastaut, it's called infantile spasms, which commonly develops into Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. And Lennox-Gastaut syndrome is a type of epilepsy where the seizures are resistant to treatment. That's medications, that's surgeries. It's accompanied with typically severe neurological impairment. And as we said, David doesn't speak. So he's undergone 3 brain surgeries to try to stop the seizures. He's at this point tried about 30 different seizure medications, and he still has seizures nearly every day. We've done all kinds of physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, vitamin therapy, herbal therapy. He's gone to energy healers, spiritual healers, herbal healers, you name it. We've done it. And we still have the seizures to deal with. So indeed, there is a weight of responsibility. So just wanted to give you a sense of what we've been through and where he is today. So I'll read this, this image. When David has a seizure, I cradle his head on my chest to keep it from thrashing side to side. I grab his fingers so his nails won't dig into his palms from the intensity of his grip. I breathe deeply and tell him he is safe as I silently count the seconds. 1, 1,000. 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, and I wait for the seizure to end. So we are fortunate in that David's seizures are typically just about a minute. Many people have seizures that go into what's called status epilepticus, where they don't end and they need rescue medication to stop the seizures. So we're fortunate that we have not experienced that. There was another point I was going to make about this. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about LGS, which I did. I think we can move on. from here. Do next. Yeah. All right, I'll read this one. In my early days of meditating, I longed to live at an ashram. I wanted to get away from the stress of David's care and find peace. I wanted to drop the smiling mask I was wearing, trying to show my kids and everyone else that I could hold it together, that I was okay, that life was okay when it wasn't. So this now gets into the spiritual aspect of how I dealt with that great weight of responsibility. And I like to share a story in the early years of me learning to meditate. One morning I had a very nice meditation and I was feeling joyful and uplifted. That night, however, David had a difficult night. Often his seizures are at night. So he had many seizures. And sometimes when that happens, he's kind of out of it for the day. The seizures really have an effect on his autonomic system. He loses any interest in eating or drinking. He gets, his hands and feet get cold. And so when that happens, I do all I can, especially to get liquid into him, even if he doesn't want to eat, because there have been times where he's become dehydrated and he's had to go to the ER for IVs. So he doesn't want to drink. He doesn't feel thirst. And at those times, I take a syringe and literally squeeze drops of water into his mouth, like you might do with a sick bird or a little creature. And before I started my spiritual practices, after a couple hours of this, I'd really feel down, but not on this particular day where I had meditated. And I thought to myself, this is really weird. My son is in this terrible state and I'm actually feeling joyful. And I recognized that I had a belief system that to be a good parent, if my child is suffering, I'm kind of suffering too. If he has a good day and someone would ask me, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing well today. If he has a bad day and someone would ask me, oh, not such a great day. My son's not doing very well. And I realized that doesn't serve my son. That doesn't serve me. So one of the things my spiritual practice has taught me is that I can hold conflicting emotions within me. I can hold the fact that this is a crappy situation, this epilepsy and how it affects my son. And I can feel good at the same time. It's conflicting, but when I owned that, then I was able to be with David on that particular day with joy in my heart. And I was able to sing to him and read to him and not sit there and care for him from a state of, this is terrible. I could sit from a state of, this is what is. And I have the resources to choose how I'm going to face and deal with what is.
And that's a practice. And that,
Yeah.
because I remember when you were living in New Jersey and you're at the second floor, David had fallen down the steps one time. Remember how, of course, upset you would be at anybody, would be any child. And there were days that you were higher and lower depending on what was going on. And so it's a literal and a figurative practice to get to that point. But would you say that you can be neutral all the time? Where are you with that?
Neutral, no. and that's, I think the beauty of it is to recognize that as human beings, we experience the whole cornucopia of emotions and everything passes with time. Everything comes and goes, it rises and falls. And yeah, I can be pretty angry and sad and all of that. It's not that I'm in a joyful state all the time. Of course not, absolutely. But I've learned to hold it all, the whole spectrum of emotion. And I know that everything comes and goes.
Learning to be okay when things aren't okay.
Absolutely.
This another diptych, this interpretation of Lori and David and Lori's happy choice. You know, is it happy? Is it not? There are many ways to interpret this image. Or to let the viewer give their own idea of what this is. Questions afterwards, I want to share what your thoughts are. Those in the audience too and Zoom. Type in your questions and we'll have it.
We're going to move through a little faster because we have a lot to get through and time is going past. So I specifically chose a home with an open floor plan so David can easily be seen if he has a seizure when I'm cooking or doing dishes. I'm often singing or talking to David. Sometimes I wonder if he pretends to sleep, so I'll shut up. This particular image has become an iconic vision image, I would say, for 1000. And so I wanted to ask you, Debbie, what was going on here when you created the image, and how do you see it representative of the whole project?
Well, I went so close with David in here because this to me is this idea of where does David reside, you know, emotionally, mentally, physically. You know, there are things that we see and there's the unseen as well. So I went into his eye, and it's funny, just this evening here, a fellow photographer of mine is here, a friend of mine, and he said, actually, no, I'm confused who it was. Somebody, you're gonna have to tell me who it was. Somebody looked into his pupil and said, is that you right there? Yeah. But I had not noticed that I was actually reflected in his eye there. But this is Lori's life. Lori is in the kitchen, working, getting things ready for David. David is on the couch where he is comfortable. And this next image is another way of sort of showing Lori. And by the way, we haven't really mentioned this, but this is all Lori's handwriting. These are her words. She's reading them all. Go ahead.
The couch is where David spends his days napping, eating, and hanging out. For years, I tried to get him to eat at the kitchen table, but I finally gave up. This is his place.
This is where everything happens. It's a lot of seizures. It's the eating, it's changing, it's.
Last night, there was a seizure there. Yeah.
Here, this imprint that he has left on the couch, and he's got his helmet there, which he needs, falls, and then there's another image that's on my website and here in the show. It's called Soothing on the Spectrum. David likes to use beads or wires or different things, repetitive motion that a lot of people on
It's
the spectrum.
soothing. Yeah, it's a typical autistic behavior to have some repetitive toy or activity, flapping.
And something that's interesting is because David uses these beads, has this sense of being like mala beads, which are also used, or a rosary, which are also used for whether you're going to say soothing, but a meditation of sorts, prayer.
So this, I was fascinated when I saw this. I hope you all got a chance to see this around the other side. It's enormous. And I'm very curious to hear you talk about the creation of this image.
This was sort of, I would call it a happy accident in the sense that they were taken in succession, you know, one right after the other. And so I saw the images already there, and it was done. It was done for me. And what I did then was I inverted the image. The reason I inverted it is this sense of going deeper. Again, as I mentioned before, where does David live? What is it that we can't see? Is he, is he seeing things that we're not seeing? Is he understanding things that we're not understanding? When he was, I would hold him and he would look up at the light. He was always looking up at the light and smiling. And I wondered, who are you? Or what is happening? And so the reason I have also the way we actually have it, this vertical way versus horizontal, which is the way I had seen it. And that's kind of this sort of another sort of happy accident, I would call it, had to do with where this space is and what it afforded us. And we were able to only put it in for that shape. And then perseverate is this repetitive motion and movement that David has with his head and these tones that he makes. And so this is really David within just one sitting, and I have him move, just capturing him. I'm not moving, he's moving. And it's this idea of his life, so very simple. And using my practices, photography, I've done so many other different styles that it all sort of came in, this doing abstract and pop art and reportage and street photography and putting them all together in different ways to describe it. And this image into this world was something.
Why don't I read it first?
Pretty difficult for Lori, and I want you to read it. And then if you could then say a little bit about what it meant to you.
Okay. Even though David has the mature body of a young man, he needs the care of a very young child. He doesn't appear to be embarrassed by his nakedness or humiliated by the acts of cleaning and care he receives. David does not associate with his body like most of us do. He shows me a profound lesson that bodies are simply vehicles for the soul. So this image came up on Instagram. There was an interview that Debbie did on vulnerability in art, and the interviewer chose this image. I wasn't aware this was going to pop up. I just saw it in my phone one morning, and I had like my heart stop for a moment. I didn't expect it, and it was jarring because of the vulnerability in this image. His bare body in the shower, and it struck me in a way that old voices came up in my head during the very difficult younger years of caring for David. I had judgmental voices saying things like, you're not doing enough to research the next step to find the cure. You're not doing enough to keep him safe from injury. You're not doing enough to push him to learn to speak, to learn to care for himself. And so when I saw this, a variation of that came out that was, you're not respecting him. This is too much. You're putting him out there for the public. This isn't right. And it was a little mini crisis for me. And I realized, though, that this is all done with great respect. My sister started this project that way, to be very respectful of David. And again, my spiritual practice came in, that I could hold a sense of shame, actually, that arose within me for this voice that was saying, you're not being protective enough as a mother. And the reality that, no, this is all being done with great respect, and this is important. And so I was able to get over that.
And more than that, though, one of the things that we've learned in this process is the sense that it's really not about us. We're showing our story, but we're just the faces of it. This is the story of so many other people around the world. And it's a way to really to show the life of a caregiver, a family caregiver who doesn't get acknowledged, you know, and not that you're doing anything for acknowledgement, but there is so much. And a person, you know, you talk about this, we talk about the glass being half empty or half full, and we need to fill our glass in order to then help the caregiver. The caregiver has to be fed so they can feed. And it's important to support caregivers. I think that with this story, what we're learning is how the caregivers have been able to receive this sense of feeling not alone. That brings us joy. And this also sense of, this is Lennox-Gastaut Syndrome. It is a rare syndrome. People don't know about it. We want to bring awareness to it. We want to educate. This is become an advocacy. That's what this is, through imagery and story. And art has this great capacity and throughout time has had this great way of allowing people an easier way into learning and making a change. And if that happens, that's pretty fabulous.
We're going to need to wrap up so we have time for Q&A.
Go ahead. I guess David, did you have more questions?
So what do you think is kind of the next thing with this photo project that you're working on? What else do you want to do that you haven't done yet?
Well, I guess there are a couple of parts to that answer. One is, I'm not finished with the work. There are other elements I want to do. I actually want to incorporate perhaps augmented reality, creating hybrid technology, and I have a partner in crime here, Clint Carlson. There he is. And anybody who's listening or who's here, we are actually looking for funding so we can go ahead and develop new programming and software so we can have movement within these images that are triggered by the viewer walking past an image or sound, and creating other dimensions to this, because the work is about dimension. It's about the dimension of spirituality. It's about the dimension of physicality. It's the dimension, where does David reside? The last image we ended up on was Superhero, where healers have told Lori, more than one have said that he is a healer himself working on other planes. And there have actually been other parents of kids with LGS that have said the same, and no connection other than, when I say no connection, we didn't know. It's just a common thread that we're hearing. People that are not normal, you know, what is that, right? I don't know what that definition is anymore. And so to answer your question, David, it's bringing the work to another level to reach people. A lot more to say, and I'll put stuff on my website, and Clint's got more to say about that another time as well. Maybe we can do something more afterwards. But also, I'd like to take the work on for traveling exhibitions. Really important to bring the work to smaller communities and larger communities, and go around the world and touch people.
One of the things about adding augmented reality and other hybrid technologies is to offer people another perspective on life, another perspective on this idea of a life that looks like it's maybe broken in some way, and to get another perspective on what are the gifts that this individual brings. And we can do that with some more varied programming to add to the exhibit.
Hi, thank you so much for this tonight. I have a question from the chat, which is, I'm curious about David's perception of the art. Is there any quote, art for healing as benefit that he may discern?
Is there any art for healing? That I didn't quite understand the second part of that.
I think the question is, do you think that David is perceiving this at all? And is it helping, is it providing a healing? Is it providing healing for him in any way?
Yeah, so we went for a walk yesterday, David, Debbie, and myself. And Debbie asked David, so what do you think about this? How do you feel about this? And similar to his response when she first asked him about doing the project, David had an even more enthusiastic response. He leaned his head into her chest with a smile and a gleeful sound many, many times.
So much I had to say enough. It's like, come on.
So obviously he's happy with what we're doing. And I imagine that gives him a sense of fulfillment in his life, as I feel a sense of fulfillment that we are doing something outside of our home that's touching other people and touching hearts. And I share that with David when I've met people here with tears in their eyes and they've come up to me and they've given hugs. And though he may not communicate clearly, he understands. I know he understands.
I think he knows so much more than, well, obviously more than we know, because how could we know what he knows? But he's in on the joke. He is, the way he laughs about things, when I rib my sister, and I do because she needs it, he is laughing. He gets this great look on his face, and I want to incorporate more of those images in there. The images that are on the walls are to reach at your hearts. I do want to make you cry, but I don't want to make you cry from sadness or pity, because we don't pity Lori. We don't pity David. They are whole and complete as they are. She's a little off, but mostly.
Well, I want to share too that David was here yesterday. And I was talking to him and I said, you're really the star of the show. And he rocked back and forth in his chair for me.
Any other questions?
I'm curious, Lori, when David has a seizure, is there any kind of warning before it happens? How fast is it?
No, unfortunately, there is no warning. That's why he saw the helmet. When he's up and walking around, we have the helmet on because he could just collapse and fall forward. And my girlfriend is right behind you, and she saw one of those nasty seizures. We were on a walk one day, and he just boom, right down. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask if all those with the syndrome, are they all nonverbal?
No, some do have some language. Yeah.
And Lori, there's a movie, what's called Far From the Tree. And you want to talk about that? Is that the title of it? That you want to David for the typing? You want to try that again?
Yeah, that was an individual with autism. There's a method of teaching nonverbal individuals. It's one finger typing, actually. It's very slow, but it's pretty phenomenal when nonverbal individuals do learn to type. And we learn again and again and again. There is a fully functioning brain in there with age-appropriate intelligence. So we fully assume that with David.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because for myself, I don't live with them. I'm in California, they're here, or they were in New Jersey. And so when I'm with David, I've always kind of spoken to him in the way that he did understand. Lori's very disrespectful though to him. She just says anything in front of him, and I have to coach her on that a little bit. But David, he sometimes we don't know because he's not communicating with us, so we sort of have to bring it to the table ourselves with how much does he understand, how much kind of kid gloves. Like I sing this song, 2 songs to him that I started when he was a little boy, a toddler.
You're not going to sing.
I
are you?
won't. I might if there's is there time? No.
Cut. Time to go.
And yeah, I'm so good at singing. I won't sing in the shower alone. That's how good I am. But I still sing those songs to him. And even though he'll be 29 in March, and I still sing those songs. And
He smiles every
loves it.
time.
He
Yeah.
loves it. He loves it.
He's smiling because you're off key every time.
He's waiting, it's too.
So I happen to know that David has 2 older brothers, and I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what it was like in the household with the other boys and how they were with David as they were growing up. No, it's a big question.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, so one's older, one's younger. And the oldest one came into this world as an empathetic human being before David even arrived. So he was always very caring and looking out for David. His younger brother had to learn to deal with a brother who would stand in front of the TV when the kids were playing video games, and that's where David wanted to stand. And if that's where David wanted to stand, that's where he was going to be. So the youngest had a lot of frustration around that. But absolutely, both boys have grown immensely in their ability to be compassionate and understanding of others who are different. That's a great gift that siblings get from individuals with disabilities.
So I have a question for you. How would you say, like, what would the trajectory, might it have been different for your life had you not had David as your son?
Okay, can you give me a bigger question?
I guess that's kind of my point. He has shaped your life. So how has he added to your life?
Oh my gosh.
Another small question.
Really? Before I address that, Sharona, did you have a follow-up that you wanted to ask? Because I saw you leaning in. Hold the mic down. Yeah.
I was actually curious about their ability to communicate with and understand him as much as I know they've grown into. Fine
That's a
men.
great. So hold on your question, Deb. So the oldest is a very talented musician. So he plays guitar, keyboard, sings, and that's really where he and David connect. David just lights up whenever his brother sings and plays for him. And
Like when I sing.
Peter composed a beautiful song for David's birthday. It's called David's Song. If you ever Google on YouTube, David's Song by Peter Sandler, it's a beautiful instrumental. And David he just revels in being with family. There's a heart connection. He loves being with his brothers. His cousin is here tonight, and whenever he comes over, he throws balls right at David in the gut.
A little aggressive.
But I when Nicholas first started doing that, I'm like, gentle, hey, easy. David laughs, loves it. So he likes to be roughed up a little bit. All right, back to your question, just real quick. That's a big one. How has my life changed by having David in it? David has taught me to slow down in life. David has taught me mindfulness. He's taught me to appreciate the moment. He's taught me to hold all my plans loosely, because everything in our lives is around David's schedule. If David needs to have a nap, we're not getting out of the house. So I've learned how to go with the flow. As I said earlier, I've learned how to hold conflicting feelings. And I see these repeated seizures as waking me up over and over and over again, and waking me up during the night, yeah, but in my consciousness, waking me up to be aware of what is most important in life. Where's the beauty, to appreciate all that I have. I have a wonderful, loving, supportive family. We all love David dearly. Yeah, Deb too. And yeah, it's come to a point. I mean, it was certainly hard when he was younger and there were 2 other boys I was raising, but it's come to a point now where it's such an honor to have David in my life. It's such an honor to care for him and to love him. And so the love story, now we can bring it full circle. It's not just a love story between David and myself. It's a love story, I want to say, between 2 sisters, and how you've always supported me and how you are here to bring greater meaning to both David's life and mine. And it's a love story of our whole family, everyone who's in support of this. So
I want to say something about Lori. She's more amazing than she sounds. She doesn't stop. It's annoying.
uh-oh, what's she gonna say?
No, but the things that she does. I'm filming Lori, and last night it's just one thing after another. David had an accident. She had to clean it.
First, he had a really nasty seizure.
He had a bad seizure. But everything she does with the food, and the most amazing foods and the most amazing ingredients for the food, so healthy. And then if I come in the mix and if I've got a sore throat, then she's going to take care of me too. She's an amazing caregiver, and everything that she does for so many other people. She's just remarkable. She is the Rock of Gibraltar.
Getting uncomfortable here.
I mean, she's courageous beyond courageous. I could never do what she does. And she just blows me away. She's amazing. I think you're amazing.
Thank you for coming. Bye, Zoom people.
Thank you, David.